In every moment, you choose who you want to be and how you want to live your life. It's your ultimate power and your inescapable responsibility. You are the master of your reality. But it doesn't always feel that way, right? I mean, too often, we believe our self-limiting assumptions. We make faulty leaps of logic. We harbor biases. We misperceive success and value in our lives. We misperceive the role of luck. We struggle to listen to each other and to our own hearts. How can we take back control, creating the lives we want for ourselves with awareness and with intention? That's the question we consider in this interview series, Mastering Your Reality. We explore the question with remarkable people who clearly have a lot to teach us on the subject. Today's guest is one such person. Molly Fletcher is awesome. She is a superstar. Known as the female Jerry Maguire, she built an amazing career for herself as a sports agent to some of the world's absolute top leading, best elite sports athletes. And then she decided to give that all up and to move on to write about the lessons she learned, to speak about it. She works with corporations and organizations, giving speeches and doing workshops, and sharing the insights she's gained along the way. Molly, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me today.
It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, you know I'm a big fan. So I want to dive in, Molly, and I want to talk about one of the topics you write about and talk about, this idea of key moments in life. That resonates strongly with me, this idea that it behooves us to spend some time thinking about being aware of the key moments in our own lives and what they mean and the opportunities they present, but also the key moments in the lives of those around us, family and friends, and particularly professionally. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I talk about it in a couple different ways. I mean, one of the ways I talk about it is how, I think with business development people, and certainly with relationships, oftentimes we think the key moment is maybe the conversation that we're inside of, which is absolutely important. But if you're a salesperson, you go make a sales call and you call on somebody, you sit in their office or you pick up the phone or you meet with them, whatever it might be, we often think that's the most important moment. And in my opinion, it's important. But what's important is, did you listen enough? Did you discover their gaps? Did you understand sort of what's maybe not working in their world so that are you curious enough in that moment so that you can take that information and then continue to create more key moments in that relationship by beginning to sort of tap into the things that you learned during that conversation? So I think, it's recognizing the moment of the interaction, which is incredibly imperative to connect. But it's also recognizing all the moments that then can stem from that can also drive human connection after you walk out of the meeting too.
Sure.
So, moments to me can change the direction of so many of our lives, and they can certainly change the direction of relationships. And that's something that I'm so passionate about. And you are too, right? I mean, the importance of being present in those moments so that we can connect, so that we can capitalize on each and every one of those little moments. So that's sort of one of the ways that I talk about it. I tell a story a lot about Matt Kuchar, a golfer I represented, and the moment of the meeting, but then all the little moments after that I was able to drive connection, which then allowed him to switch over for us to represent him.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny because in my my professional career, I've often been impressed by the business development folks or the salespeople who, like you said, they have the meeting, they listen, and they pick up on maybe some key event that's coming up for me or my company in a month or in 2 months, and without making a big deal about it, they file away that information, and then they pop up again to give you that call, to send you that email to say, hey, how did it go? I know last time we talked, you said this was going on or that was going on, and how did it turn out? And that's often so much more compelling. To your point, it's kind of like meeting people where they want to be met rather than where you want to meet them.
Absolutely. It shows you listened. It showed you care. And all of that has to stem from a really authentic place, in my opinion, for it to work effectively and for it to really become a moment that both people could benefit from.
Sure. And in terms of the sort of key moments in our own lives, one of the things I know that you talk a lot about in your Game Changers podcast and your speeches, which I've been privileged to hear you talk. there are those moments where we are susceptible to the barrage of cues from society and from others around us that tell us what we cannot do, what we should do, what we're quote unquote bad at, and all those things. And then there are those sort of key moments where we tell ourselves some of those awful things. I know you've dealt with some of that, particularly with respect to gender, but I think also sort of more generally, you know, how can we be more present and more aware of when those key moments go on? Because often those moments are really turning points in our lives, and sometimes we don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sometimes those moments you may feel it, right? You may feel a pit in your stomach. You may feel discomfort. You may feel a little fear. And, those to me are the moments that we have to lean into. Those are the moments that I saw great athletes and coaches step into.
Yeah.
Because what happens in those moments when we push through that discomfort is the other side of that is often great progress and great moments. I mean, one of the things I saw with great athletes is that they get nervous just like we all do before a big moment or a big meeting or a big pitch. But what they do is they step into it with confidence and send themselves the right messages in those moments so that they can deliver and execute. When a guy's pitching game 7 of a World Series, he's nervous, but he does it anyway, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if a golfer's standing over a putt on a Sunday
Yeah.
to win his first major or first tour event, he's scared, he's nervous. But you know what? The best do they say, I've done this thousands of times. I'm going to drain this putt. I put myself in this spot and I can do this.
Yeah.
And they overcome those moments of fear with belief and positivity and a clear purpose too. And often I've seen the result be tremendous.
And that's something you did in your career, no?
Well, you're kind. I mean, I had a lot of, I was scared when I left the sports agency business. I had, an unbelievable business, 300 clients, lots of wonderful agents. But I felt a calling and a bigger purpose to speak and to write we do workshops now. And I felt that was where I really needed to be. And I trusted myself. I had great support around me and I leaned into it. And the result has been, sort of beyond my expectations, inside and sort of outside of me. And so I'm so grateful for that.
I am too. I'm glad you did it, Mom. Now,
well, I got to meet you. So, hey, it was
yeah.
a no-brainer.
Yeah. Now, I think that, a lot of these themes are related to this idea of curiosity, which you write about and talk about, which I love. I think curiosity, I agree with you that curiosity is such an important aspect of the human condition. It leads to such great things. And in particular, you've talked about how curiosity is about being present. It's about taking risks, and it's about generating energy. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Well, I think when we're curious about what drives other people, about what inspires them, what makes them happy, what makes them tick, that then drives connection. And to me, it's number one at the most basic level, a much more interesting way to live your life, right? I mean, the more that you can learn about other people, the way they think, the way they behave, the way they recover, the way they execute, and what matters most to them, to me, you are constantly learning. And that's something that I saw and continue to see with peak performers is they're lifelong learners. They are always curious about ways to get better. I mean, you don't hear people like that go to bed at night and go, man, I listened to too many podcasts today. I learned too much today, right? Or I read way too much today. I shouldn't have read so much. So to me, curiosity, number one, is an interesting way to live your life. But number two, to your point, it is about energy. When you inquire with people, when you ask questions, you learn, and when you learn, you grow, and when you learn, you connect. And we're all wired for human connection. We're all wired for relationships. So curiosity, but there's some things that have to happen inside of ourselves before we can even be curious. I mean, we have to be comfortable being a little bit vulnerable. We have to be comfortable knowing that we don't have all the answers. We have to often come from a place of, you have to be pretty comfortable with yourself, in my opinion, to be curious. What's that?
You got to be at peace.
You do have to be at peace. I think you do have to be at peace to be curious. And you have to be comfortable with yourself, right? To your point. And I think if you're comfortable with yourself, you're probably at peace and you're fulfilled. And so you're not afraid to ask and to inquire and to learn. And what I have found when I was an athlete in college, I always wanted to learn from other people. It didn't mean I had to do it that way, right? Like it didn't mean if they hit their backhand one way and I learned how to do it, it didn't mean I was going to do it. But what it did was it gave me choices and it gave me an opportunity to learn a different way of doing something. So I think you have to be clear enough with yourself so that you can be curious, filter it through your own value system, filter it through what matters most to you, filter it through who you really are, and then assess, okay, these are the kinds of things that I'm going to take from that moment and deploy it in my own life.
It's funny that you say you don't have to do it that way yourself. You take whatever insights you glean and you apply them in your own life. I'm reminded of before I sat down to write my book, Eyes Wide Open. Several people had recommended Stephen King's book on writing, which is nonfiction and largely autobiographical, and he talks about his sort of philosophy on writing. It's a phenomenal book. I highly recommend it. But anyway, I remember reading this book, totally loving it, just being amazed by the man, but also thinking to myself, there is no way that this is how I'm going to write my book. This is just not how I work.
Well, I'm excited to know that. I've got a 3-hour flight here in a couple hours. I'm going to download it.
Awesome. Yeah, on writing. It's awesome. It's
okay. And I love your book, Isaac. I love your book.
Thank you, Molly. That's kind of you.
So cool.
So we've talked about, we've talked about being present. We've talked about, being at peace, creating the space to evolve, to grow, to connect with others. A lot of this, I think, resonates with your work on this idea of inspiration and just the amazing potential that comes with inspiration in life. And you tell a story that I love about that magnolia tree. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, it's so cool that you're referencing that. So my mom and dad, I am very, very close to, and I moved to Atlanta from Michigan. And one time my mom was visiting me at my apartment, and I probably lived there for months and months and months. I mean, I don't know how long, but it had been a while. And I think she had come down in the winter before. But anyway, it was a beautiful day, and we got off the elevator at my apartment complex, and you turned left, and you took like 10 steps. And we sort of get halfway down the hallway, and she pauses. And literally, it was like she saw a ghost, right? And she goes, "Oh my gosh, Molly, that magnolia tree is magnificent. It's one of the prettiest trees I've ever seen. It's just enormous. It's incredible." And I'm sort of already past it, standing at the door with my key, trying to move on to the next thing. And I said, What are you talking about?" And she said, "This tree." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, cool." I'd never seen it before. I mean, I'd never even looked at it. I'd never stopped to pull a flower off of it and smell it. I'd never even known it was there. And it was a moment, to your point, when I went, wow, that's incredible. I've walked by it probably hundreds of times, and here was her probably first time walking by it, and it was magnificent. So, it's something that I work on every day. I'm sort of a, go, go, go kind of person. And so it's something
really, Molly? I'm shocked.
Yeah. So I'm trying to work on that because it is so important to stop. And when we create that space, we create space in our lives to be curious. We create space in our lives to be creative. So it was a moment that was more than that magnolia tree. It was a moment that taught me to slow down and to listen and to look.
It's such a great story. It's such a great metaphor, I think, for the way we live our lives. Like you were saying, living, reactively, living as happenstance versus sort of proactively.
Sure.
Living with awareness and intention and all those things, which it's a shame. I mean, I'm not one of those big sort of doomsday guys where, this technology is such and this generation is such that everything's, different. And now we're all these awful trends. I don't buy all that stuff. That said, I do think there's a lot to be said. And studies have been written. Science shows this whole social media and smartphones and gadgets. And it's so overwhelming. And I know looking at my children, I just want so badly for them to understand that you can plug it in, and before you know it, months go by, years go by, and you haven't stopped to
Yeah.
to be inspired, to figure out who you are and how you want to live.
No question. And it's funny. I was listening to something or reading something the other day, and when we grew up, Isaac, right? I mean, you'd read a magazine and it ended.
Yeah.
You'd read a book and it ended, and it would create these natural gaps to set it down and to stop. And now it's this scroll. It's constant, and so there is no sort of interlooped gaps. These sort of created gaps, and so it just keeps flowing. And it is so important to take
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah,
Because
one thing I
that's
try to do, this is not my idea. I think I first read about it with Michelle Geelan wrote an interesting piece on it or whatever. Anyway, I do try to, I don't always succeed, but I do try to like not touch my, my iPhone or whatever, until like I say, so I get up, think about what I want to do for the day, spend some time with my kids before they head off to school, and try very hard to just not touch that iPhone, not check email, not check messages or whatever until it's time to get to work.
But you're inspiring me to remember, because sometimes I use some apps on my phone that I read some things to start my day,
Yeah.
and I need to be disciplined about just going to that app and not maybe peeking at other things before I go to those, to get myself kind of in the right spot.
It's almost like you can't control yourself. To your point, you pick up the phone or you open the laptop to do something specifically. And then before you know it, you're checking, your Twitter, you're checking email, and it's just like, this is not why I picked up the phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And our kids model us.
I know.
That's the thing that I think sometimes we parents forget, right? Is that, but in my point, you always hear your parents say, "Well, I'm working, honey. Like
Right.
you're just kind of goofing around." But I'm not sure they delineate that always.
Yeah, it's a great point you make, though. It's just an amazing thing in life. You can tell your kids all you want about what your values are, what your priorities are, and it's great and all, but they look at what you do. They look at your example.
Totally, 100%.
Molly, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Well, I could talk to you forever, Isaac, but I know you're a busy man. But thank you for having me on. You are. It's such a treat to know you, and thanks for what you do for so many people. It's just awesome.
I appreciate it, Molly. Hopefully we can do this again soon.
Love it. Stay curious in the meantime.
Definitely, Molly. Always. Safe travels today.
All right. Thanks so much. Be safe. Okay. Bye-bye.